The jungle was already awake before the first human footsteps touched the soft, damp earth. Sunlight filtered in through the thick canopy, a golden-green mosaic that danced across the forest floor. Every leaf trembled under the gentle sway of the morning breeze, and the air smelled of wet soil, decaying leaves, and the faint sweetness of blooming orchids. Tiny birds flitted among the branches, their calls weaving a delicate symphony with the hum of insects hidden in the undergrowth. It was a place of quiet wonder, where even the smallest movement felt alive with possibility. A narrow path wound along the riverbank, slick with dew and scattered leaves. A woman moved carefully barefoot, her eyes scanning the trees and the water with practiced attention. She carried a small journal and a pair of binoculars, always ready to note the unexpected, the flash of a bird's wing, the ripple of a fish breaking the river's mirrored surface. Her heart thrummed with a mix of curiosity and calm. The forest had a rhythm all its own, and she liked to think she could almost follow it. Nearby, children of the village laughed quietly, chasing each other along the banks, but she was absorbed in the quiet language of the jungle, listening to the whispers of life around her. Not far from the human activity, a mother elephant waded into the river with her calf. The calf was small, its skin still soft and wrinkled like folded leather, but it moved with eager energy, splashing water over its back with its short trunk. Each spray sparkled in the morning sun, catching on droplets that hung suspended in the warm, humid air. The mother's massive feet sank slightly into the mud as she moved with measured grace, a protective presence that never left the calf's side. She watched him with a quiet intensity, her large ears flicking now and then to listen for any sign of danger. The calf trumpeted softly, a high, squealing note of joy. And the woman on the riverbank paused, raising her binoculars to see the scene more clearly, not far above, in the shadows of a broad tree whose roots tangled into the riverbank. A silverback gorilla sat motionless, watching. His dark eyes held intelligence and an almost human curiosity as he observed the elephant calf's playful antics. The gorilla's chest rose and fell slowly, each breath measured, calm yet alert. Though he appeared serene, the faintest tension lingered in his posture, a subtle readiness that only the wild can teach. He shifted slightly, moving a heavy arm across his knees, his gaze darting to the woman who had paused to watch the elephant. A silent recognition passed between them, a fragile, unspoken trust that existed only in moments when danger was far, and the jungle's rhythm allowed for connection. For a time, the morning unfolded in perfect harmony. Birds landed on low branches, shaking loose tiny drops of dew that fell to the river below. A family of capybaras nibbled cautiously at the river's edge, their soft grunts punctuating the soft splash of the elephants. The woman smiled softly to herself, scribbling a note in her journal, trying to capture not just what she saw but what she felt, the sense of wonder, the quiet thrill of being present in a place untouched by hurry. Yet even in this peaceful tableau, there were whispers of something else. A sudden rustle in the undergrowth made the elephant calf pause mid. His ears flicked outward, his small trunk curling slightly, as if tasting the air. The mother stiffened beside him, moving closer in a protective gesture, her eyes scanning the water's edge. The gorilla's nostrils flared. He sniffed, the tip of his lip curling slightly as he listened to sounds invisible to the human ear. Somewhere beneath the smooth surface of the river, a massive form shifted. The water rippled in a slow, deliberate pattern, almost imperceptible, but enough to make the elephant's trunk sway nervously. The woman, still unaware, felt a shiver of instinct brush her skin. She tilted her head toward the river, sensing a disturbance she could not yet name. It was subtle, like the faint tremor before a distant thunderclap, a quiet promise that the serenity of the morning might not last. Somewhere in the green depths, the black coils of an anaconda pressed against the riverbed, its triangular eyes just breaking the surface, glinting with liquid patience. Its body moved slowly, almost hypnotically, following currents as it surveyed the world above water. The woman's breath caught, though she did not yet understand why. The elephant snorted softly, a low warning sound, while the gorilla let out a muted chest thump, a signal that the air itself carried a new weight. Even as the forest hummed with life, the mood shifted imperceptibly. The birds' songs grew shorter, more clipped, and the insect's buzz seemed to pause as if listening. A leaf fell silently from a branch, spinning through the air, and for a moment, everything held still. The woman's eyes widened slightly, and she tightened her grip on her journal. A sense of unease curling through her chest. Across the riverbank, the elephant calf nudged his mother, and she lifted her trunk to trumpet softly, the sound low and deep, a mixture of warning and reassurance. The gorilla shifted again, eyes fixed on the dark swirl beneath the water, his muscles tensing subtly. And then, the anaconda's eyes lifted higher, shimmering in the reflection of sunlight that fractured on the river. It was a quiet, predatory patience, a force of nature that demanded respect and caution. The mother elephant's ears flicked outward, the calf pressed against her side, and the gorilla's gaze remained unbroken, locked on the silent, dangerous visitor in their midst. The jungle seemed to hold its breath. Birds froze mid-flight, and even the wind softened, carrying the faint scent of wet earth and moss. The moment was delicate, balanced on the knife edge between calm and storm. The woman lowered her binoculars slightly, a mixture of awe and hesitation in her eyes. She could not yet see the full danger, but something primal, deep within her, whispered that this morning was no longer entirely peaceful. Somewhere, in the hidden depths of the river, patience waited, and instinct stirred in the creatures that shared the jungle. The elephant flared her ears once more, trumpeting softly a note of readiness. The gorilla thumped his chest again, slower this time, a silent promise to act if needed. And in that stillness, the forest seemed to whisper a warning. Something had shifted, and the calm was no longer untouched. The river's surface shimmered, the leaves rustled gently, and the morning light, golden and warm, seemed to hold its breath alongside the creatures, who knew instinctively that the first shadow of danger had arrived. The scream cut through the jungle like a thunderclap, sharp and raw, shaking birds from their perches and sending a family of capybaras scrambling into the underbrush. The woman had barely noticed the ripple in the river before it became a violent surge. A dark, coiling shape burst from the water with astonishing speed, striking her with the weight of raw power. Her arms flailed helplessly, grabbing at the wet grass, at the air, at nothing. The anaconda's massive body wrapped around her legs, pulling her toward the river, and the jungle seemed to explode in noise and motion. Leaves rattled overhead, the river hissed and gurgled as it churned around the predator, and the woman's breath came in short, panicked gasps. A flash of memory surged through her mind, the calm of the morning, the elephant calf splashing in the water, the gentle, steady presence of the gorilla watching from the trees. How easily that peace had been shattered. Now, in the chaos, she felt the helplessness of a tiny creature in a vast, indifferent world. She kicked, but the snake's grip only tightened, cold and merciless, against her skin. The riverbank blurred as she twisted, her fingers scraping against mud and roots, her voice breaking into a high, terrified wail. The forest, so alive and harmonious just minutes ago, had transformed into a place of raw, immediate danger. From the shadows, the elephant's deep, resonant trumpeting broke the sound of the chaos. Dust and loose soil rose with every movement of her massive feet as she charged toward the river, her trunk swinging in wide, fluid arcs. The calf followed, high-pitched, trumpeting, echoing its mother's urgency. Each step of the elephant sent vibrations through the ground, a pulse of warning and intent that reached every creature nearby. The gorilla, sensing the sudden upheaval, thumped its chest violently and moved through the undergrowth with astonishing speed, branches snapping under its weight. His eyes were locked on the river, on the dark coils of the predator. And on the human caught in its grasp, the riverbank became a storm of water, mud, and leaves. Splashes erupted as the woman struggled against the crushing coils, her hair plastered to her face, her clothing drenched and heavy. The anaconda hissed, tightening, its body slick and terrifyingly strong. The elephant reached her just as the snake attempted to drag the woman beneath the water's surface. She felt the massive trunk brush her shoulder, wrap lightly at first, then with determined pressure, guiding her back from the edge. The mother elephant's eyes, calm yet commanding, seemed to say, "I will protect you." The gorilla had reached the far side of the coil, gripping the thick, muscular tail of the serpent and tugging with all his strength. Water sprayed in every direction, glinting in the sunlight like scattered diamonds as the battle unfolded. Time slowed. Each heartbeat was loud and clear, each sound amplified. The woman's frantic gasps, the splashing of the river, the low rumble of the elephant, the thump of the gorilla's chest, the wet hiss of the anaconda. The woman's mind flickered between terror and the surreal awareness that help had arrived, though not in the form she had imagined. These were creatures of the wild, strangers in form, yet allies in instinct. She could feel the weight of their courage pressing against the serpent, a silent, unyielding force that refused to let her fall. The anaconda writhed violently, its slick body coiling tighter around her legs. But the combined efforts of the elephant and gorilla began to shift the battle. The elephant's trunk lifted her gently, holding her just out of the snake's reach while planting her firmly on safer ground. The gorilla's arms strained as he dragged the serpent's tail, jerking, twisting, using every ounce of muscle to pry it free. Leaves tore from trees, branches snapped, and the river churned with a rhythm of survival, a raw chorus of life and death. For a moment, the world seemed suspended, a heartbeat of chaos frozen in time. Her mind raced with fear, but also with an awe she could hardly name. The elephant's trunk moved around her protectively, warm and steady, while the gorilla, muscles taut, held the serpent's tail as if he alone could anchor the wild's fury. The anaconda's head lashed, but it could not overpower the coordinated strength of the two animals working instinctively together. Every pull, every step back, every defiant breath from the woman seemed to feed into the rhythm of rescue. The jungle itself seemed to hold its breath, the usual background hum of insects and birds fading into a tense silence that magnified every movement. Every sound, the woman's hands gripped the elephant's wet, wrinkled trunk, her nails digging slightly as she found purchase, a human anchor in a surreal storm. The elephant pressed a comforting side against her, a physical promise of protection. The gorilla let out a sharp, commanding grunt and dug his feet into the mud, forcing the serpent's massive body to slide backward into the river. Slowly, painfully, the serpent's coils slackened. The hiss of water-filled air broke the tension, the anaconda's head retreating, slipping beneath the surface like a dark shadow retreating to the safety of the deep. Breath came in ragged, uneven gasps. The woman collapsed onto the muddy bank, trembling and soaked, her heart still pounding like a drum. The elephant lowered her trunk, nudging the woman gently with reassurance. The gorilla let go of the tail, stepping back, chest heaving as he watched the river for any further threat. The river's surface rippled, then stilled, leaving only the reflections of trees and sky, calm and indifferent once more. The jungle seemed to exhale. The birds returned cautiously to their branches. The capybaras crept back to nibble the grass, and the faint hum of insects resumed. The woman sat quietly, staring at the elephant and gorilla who had saved her, tears running down her cheeks, not just from fear, but from an overwhelming sense of gratitude and wonder. The enormity of what had just occurred pressed gently on her chest, a mixture of relief and awe. In the golden morning light, mud streaked across her skin and clothes. The elephant's eyes met hers briefly, dark and intelligent, and the gorilla gave a soft, measured exhale. No words were needed. Trust had been given and received, and a fragile bond had been forged in the chaos. Somewhere beneath the water, the anaconda had disappeared, its presence a shadow now. But the lesson lingered in the quiet that followed. Courage often comes from unexpected allies, and even in the heart of danger, survival can be a shared, almost sacred act. The river's gentle current carried a few fallen leaves downstream. A faint breeze ruffled the woman's hair as she leaned against the elephant's massive side, chest heaving, and the gorilla settled nearby, still alert but calm. The jungle had returned to its rhythm, but the memory of fear and courage alike would remain etched into the riverbank, the mud, the water, and the hearts of those who had witnessed it. And in that quiet, the first threads of hope began to stitch themselves into the morning. A promise that, even in the wild, there was a place for bravery, trust, and an unexpected, almost magical rescue. The riverbank was quiet now, almost impossibly so. The echoes of struggle had faded, leaving only the soft, uneven rhythm of the woman's breathing and the deep, rolling rumbles of the elephant beside her. Water trickled over the river's smooth stones, carrying fallen leaves downstream, as though the jungle itself were quietly resetting after the violence that had rippled through its morning calm. Her clothes were soaked, plastered to her skin, and streaked with mud and water, but she could barely notice. Every sense was alive, still tingling from the terror and adrenaline that had gripped her. Moments before, the elephant lowered her massive head and wrapped her trunk gently around the woman. lifting her slightly to make sure she was safe from the water's edge. There was no haste in the movement, only a careful steadiness, a maternal protectiveness that communicated trust without words. The woman's fingers brushed against the elephant's rough skin, tracing the ridges of her trunk, and for the first time since the attack, she felt a slow, grounding relief spread through her chest. Near the undergrowth, the silverback gorilla remained tense, muscles coiled, still watching the dark water where the anaconda had retreated. Then, with a careful, deliberate tug, he guided the massive serpent back into the river's deeper channel. The water swallowed its bulk in slow, hesitant movements, and the creature disappeared beneath the murky surface, leaving only ripples as evidence of its passage. The woman slumped against the elephant's side, shivering as adrenaline finally began to fade. The elephant let out a low, soothing rumble, the vibrations passing through her body in a strange, calming resonance. The gorilla sat nearby, chest still rising and falling heavily, and allowed himself a slow, deep exhale, a quiet acknowledgement that the danger had passed. The three of them, human, elephant, and gorilla, existed in a delicate harmony, an unspoken acknowledgement of what had just been endured. The woman's tears flowed freely now, streaking the mud on her cheeks, and she reached out to touch the gorilla's arm, marveling at the raw power and gentle intelligence contained within him. For a long moment, none of them moved. The jungle seemed to hold its breath, offering space for recovery and reflection. Sunlight spilled through the canopy, warming the damp riverbank, highlighting the wet sheen on the elephant's skin and the silver gray of the gorilla's back. Birds slowly returned to the branches, their songs tentative at first, hesitant, as if checking that the threat had truly passed. The river whispered against the stones, soft and forgiving, and somewhere in the distance, a monkey called to its family, its voice a fragile thread connecting the forest. Back to its normal rhythm, the woman leaned her forehead against the elephant's trunk, feeling the slow, steady pulse beneath the thick skin, and allowed herself to breathe fully for the first time. She thought of the terror she had felt just moments ago, of the cold, unyielding grip of the anaconda, and yet now, in the aftermath, the memory seemed to carry something else. Gratitude, and an almost sacred recognition of the courage that had been shown. The elephant, so immense and powerful, had moved with surprising gentleness. The gorilla, fierce and muscular, had acted with calculated precision, risking himself for her safety. These creatures of the wild had chosen, in their own way, to save her. The river reflected the golden sunlight in slow ripples, and the jungle around them seemed to sigh in quiet approval. The woman closed her eyes, letting the warmth and the slow rumbles of the elephant fill her senses. She felt the gorilla's arm lightly against her shoulder, firm but calm, a reminder that this was not a world of random survival alone. Trust, bravery, and unexpected friendship could exist here, too. She remembered how terrified she had been, how every fiber of her body had screamed to flee, and now, how every heartbeat was matched by the steady presence of two wild protectors who had stood between her and death. It was a moment suspended in time, one of profound silence. The jungle's usual symphony, the birds, the insects, the rustle of the leaves, resumed gradually, softly, as though allowing life to continue after a brief, sharp pause. The woman looked from the elephant to the gorilla, and back again, her eyes wide with wonder. She realized, in a quiet, almost shocking way, that she had witnessed something extraordinary. Courage did not only belong to humans. Compassion did not only exist in our species. She had been touched, protected, and saved by creatures whose lives were bound to instinct. And yet, who had chosen, in that instant, to act with empathy? The elephant nudged her gently with her trunk, encouraging her to rise slowly. She stood on unsteady legs, her arms wrapped around the animal's side for balance, and gave the elephant a look of gratitude that needed no words. The gorilla remained a silent guardian, alert but relaxed, his chest rising and falling in steady rhythm as he scanned the river once more. In that moment, she understood the deep bond between these two creatures, the trust they shared, and the courage they could summon when faced with danger. She could not have imagined it before, but now it was unmistakable. In the wilderness, bravery and loyalty could emerge from even the most unexpected forms. The sunlight shifted through the trees, bathing the riverbank in soft, golden warmth. The woman knelt briefly, touching the water with her fingers, then turned to embrace the elephant's trunk fully. She felt the slow, patient heartbeat beneath, the skin, and for the first time, allowed herself to smile through her tears. The gorilla shuffled closer, resting a hand lightly on the riverbank beside her. A quiet gesture of presence and reassurance. No words were needed. The jungle had spoken in its own language, through strength, through touch, through action. As she finally stepped back, taking in the vastness of the rainforest around them, she felt the enormity of what had just happened. The anaconda was gone. The immediate threat vanished, but the lesson lingered in the air like a scent carried. By the river's current, survival was not only about fear or strength, it was also about trust, courage, and connection. The elephant and the gorilla had demonstrated that life, even in its most raw and dangerous form, was capable of compassion. The camera of memory might have pulled back, capturing the three figures, framed by the towering trees, the winding river, and the soft mist rising from the forest floor. The woman, small and human, stood between her protectors, each of them marked by the struggle, each a testament to bravery and care. The jungle stretched endlessly beyond, beautiful, wild, and merciless, yet capable of the gentlest acts. She realized, finally, that love, fierce, protective, and unexpected, could exist in the most unlikely places. As the sunlight warmed her wet hair and the jungle began to hum with life once more, she allowed herself to reflect quietly. The morning had started with wonder, turned into terror, and now ended with something even more profound: respect, gratitude, and awe. The elephant raised her trunk in a slow, measured sweep, and the gorilla's dark eyes met hers for a fleeting, knowing moment. The river flowed calmly between them, carrying with it the memory of fear, the evidence of courage, and the promise that, sometimes, the fiercest love comes from those we least expect. And in that quiet, golden moment, the woman realized that the jungle had not only tested her, but had also taught her. Survival was more than strength. Life was more than instinct. And in the shadows and the sun, in the river and the trees, courage and compassion could rise together, silently, beautifully, in the heart of the wild.